Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Tristian Smith. He is a retired Army officer, author, and foster youth advocate, and we learn about powerful tools that helped him navigate trauma and build a mission driven life. And we learn about how actionable lessons on resilience, leadership, and mentorship that can change and elevate your personal growth and professional impact. Welcome to the show, Tristian.
Thank you for having me, AJ. I'm excited to be here.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Tristian. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about how one can turn adversity into leadership power that you have done. We'll talk about this and more. But before that, let's talk a bit about your journey, your story, your background, so that people know who they are listening to.
Well, I'm a published author, former foster youth, current foster youth advocate. So I spent most of my childhood in the foster care system here in the United States, in the state of Georgia, where from the age of 18, I lived in nearly 30 foster homes. I attended 13 different schools and lived in 4 cities before emancipating out of the system. I would go on to graduate with my bachelor's. I would become an Army officer. And after getting out of the military in 2023, that is when I decided to write my book and become part of a couple of organizations that specialize in helping to stabilize foster youth. Because the big key with youth in foster care is the stability aspect. You know, they're being uprooted from their families, they're being uprooted from their schools, their siblings, and you know, from what studies have shown are that foster youth that are stabilized have the best chance of success. However, the average amount of placements for a foster youth is somewhere between 3 to 5. So it's all about stability when it comes to the success of foster youth.
Absolutely. So in that backdrop, what do you do as a foster youth advocate? What is it that you want from the system?
So as an advocate, so one of the organizations that I'm a part of is what we call CASA. It stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates. So youth that become part of the system, they're assigned a volunteer that goes in, checks on them regularly, makes sure that they don't need anything from a medical or mental health, resource aspect. And then we just develop relationships with those kids, because as I've experienced and so many other foster youth here in the United States have, the judges change out, your caseworkers who are overseeing your case change, your placements change as well. But those CASA volunteers, they're the one, they could be the one stable aspect in that child's life to, provide them hope and inspiration and give them the resilience to get through whatever adversity they're dealing with at that time in their lives. Another organization I'm a part of is what we call the Foster Care Review Board, where every month, me and another group of people on my team, we review cases and we come with recommendations that go to the judge that help with the stabilization of these youth. So whether they need, whether we're trying to get them dental appointments, whether we're trying to get them mental health resources, tutoring for school, or we're trying to figure out what's keeping this kid from either going back to their birth family or getting adopted. It's all steering towards stabilization.
Absolutely. So why is the system not doing these things already? Means, is there a problem to do? There are funds, there are people, there are good people within the system. Where is the problem, Christian, that you people from outside will have to come in and look at the problem, understand it, and then try to find a solution? I thought there the government system is quite efficient rather than any other part of the world.
Yes. So the foster care system, in my opinion, is one of the most it's one of those redheaded stepchildren that no one wants to you know contribute funding to, because it's all about funding. You know, I feel that foster youth, because of the negative statistics that we get based on the foster youth population, you know, a high percentage of them don't end up finishing high school. A high percentage of them do not, you know, they end up being part of the penal system or the prison system here, or they end up homeless or on drugs. So what we're trying to do is rewrite that narrative so that more people, rewrite the narrative and help the foster care system get more attention from those that can contribute funding toward it. I think that like you said, like you just asked, the biggest reason for the issues within the foster care system, it stems to funding.
Absolutely. So funding does the government lack funding? Doesn't the government put funding into this particular system? Obviously, it's within the government, from the government itself, or does it get funded from outside?
So a lot of the foster care entities, they're state funded, and we know that state funding doesn't nearly have the wallet size of the federal government. You know, the federal government is busy focusing on our military, our homeland security, things of that nature. Whereas states, you know, it just depends on who's running for who's, you know, the governor of the state and who the representatives are. And if, you know, foster youth and that population are a priority for that individual. So it depends on a lot of different variables.
Right. So if there are so many organizations, why can't they make representations to the federal government to put some attention to this issue also? Means there will be always other issues. Why not this issue, especially when it's related to children?
Well, since I've gotten out, so I got out of foster care in 2007. And since then, you know, you've had a lot of different organizations come to the front and, you know, bring awareness to foster youth in that population. But again, you know, a lot of it's a lot of politics and it's funding, you know. So when we're talking about a disenfranchised population, you need the right people with the right, you know, kind of funding to be able to really make a difference on these kids. And, you know, that's where we as volunteers, as CASA volunteers, we're kind of, you know, we kind of drive that, or we help with driving that.
Absolutely. How can listeners help here in terms of, you know, anything here? Can listeners who want to help and want to be involved into this, is there a way they can do so, Tristian?
So if you're here in the United States, there is a CASA organization in your state. I think there's maybe one or two states that don't have CASA programs. But I think like 48, 49 of the states here in our country have CASA and volunteer organizations. You know, if you want to, there's a certain amount of training that you have to go through to be a volunteer that teaches you how to understand the trauma that some of these kids have gone through. Also, if you want to be a foster parent, we are always short on foster parents, good quality foster parents. My issue when I was a kid in the system was that I didn't have the quality of foster parents that I needed to prevent me from having such an unstable childhood. You know, if I was mistreated, I was doing whatever it took to get taken out of that home. So a lot of kids, you know, they just need the compassion, the patience, the love, and the stability. You know, if they have a stable presence, you know, that's breathing life into them, you know, that's encouraging them, that's telling them, hey, I'm here right beside you as you go through this journey, that'll make them feel so much better. And then you'll start to see changes in the behavior and eventually the belief in themselves.
Absolutely. And talking of believing in oneself, you talk about, that life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond. So tell us about your journey. Means how did you use this particular saying in your own life? How can others also do it in their own lives? Even foster care, they can also utilize it possible as per their situation.
So what I tell anyone, whether they're an adult or whether they're a kid in the foster care system, like, bad things happen and everyone faces adversity. There's not a person on this earth that hasn't been exposed to some type of adversity. Some, just more than others. For me, it started when my mother died when I was 7 years old. It continued when I was being physically beaten and abused by relatives who I thought, cared for me. And then it, continued throughout my childhood as I was moving from home to home, from school to school, from city to city. And eventually, I had to make a decision that, yes, all of these different things are happening to me, but I can still make good choices that impact my future. So, no matter what the adversity is, you can have a positive mindset. You can have belief in yourself. You can, for me, it was focusing on education, because education here in the United States opens up so many doors. And so once I got on college campus, I had to realize that, all those bad things happen to me, but I'm sitting on a college campus with all of these kids who maybe didn't go through some of the things that I went through, but I'm on an even playing field now. Like, it's up to me to make something of myself. And I can't blame my past if I screw up my present and my future. So, as long as you're choosing the right friends to surround yourself with, having good mentors, and making good, sound decisions, you'll continue to set yourself up for success.
Absolutely, Tristian. So, how did you get that? Means that the right sort of mentors. When you are, when you don't have that much of support, your mind does not work in that situation, and it's very difficult to, know who is good, who is not so good. How did you do it for yourself?
So I found my mentors. I was introduced to them by one of my caseworkers from foster care. So they were the relatives of one of my caseworkers. So when I went off to college, I found out that my caseworker had, she was from the city that I was going to attend college in. So it just so happened that she had a brother and his wife who had experience working with foster youth and, being mentors to teenagers. And so it was like a hand in glove fit. And, 18 years later, they're getting ready to come and spend the weekend up here with me at my home, because we've just maintained that kind of relationship. And they've gone from being my mentors to more of a maternal and paternal figures in my life. So I would say if you get a good mentor, listen to them. They've lived a lot of life, and much more life than you have. And so, you don't have to take everything they say and adhere to it, but listen. You have two ears and one mouth for a reason, because you're supposed to listen twice as much as you talk. And as soon as I realized that, then that's when I started to see my life, take a turn for the better.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about, learn from your book, Against All Odds. When did you think of this, writing a book? Because life is very busy. Earlier in foster care, then in college, then you military life, and then, so many other things. So How did this book idea come to you?
So even in high school, like my English teachers my teachers would tell me that, one day you need to write a book based on, all the things that have happened in your life. And, I would continue to hear it, from friends in college. And it really didn't uh, start to become an actuality until the year that I had to medically retire from the Army. And so while I'm, away from, while I'm preparing for this next stage of my life, I was telling myself, hey, this is the best time to write a book. I'm transitioning out of the military. I could talk, this is a great time to talk about, my transition as a foster youth, so I found a self-publishing company. I articulated how I wanted to narrate my story, and they said they could help me do it. And so within a year, we had a finished product, and we're coming up on almost the 1 year anniversary of me publishing my book. So it's been awesome to have foster youth, foster parents, mental health professionals, counselors, current foster parents reading my book to understand, my thought process and to understand, how I got to where I am right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what is it that you want to do now? Means, what is your vision for your life? You have already, the past is behind, the difficult days are behind. You have done so much of good work. You are continuing with the good work. This is one book. Maybe you will think of other book. What about the future? How have you planned your future now that you can, you are in a position to decide things much, much better?
Well, this year I started getting opportunities to speak in front of people and organizations. So I want to continue to do that, and bring awareness not just to who I am as an author and someone who's found success since they got out of foster care, but to the overall foster care community in general. We need people to tell their stories and share their stories. So I'm going to continue to do that. I currently work for the federal government. I'm currently in grad school working on my second master's right now. So I'm really busy with school and work as well. But anytime that an organization is looking for me to come and speak to them or speak to youth, I'm always willing to make time for that. So my job is to help as many foster youth find success with the days I have remaining on earth.
Absolutely, Tristian. There's much to learn about all these things from you, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, learn more from you, from your book, and about the things that you are doing. What is the best way for them to do so?
For my book, it is on Amazon. I'm like one of the first 5 or 6 books once you type in Against All Odds. And then if you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, you can do so there as well. That's where I do most of my posting and messaging and networking at.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.